Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. We are on YouTube, WPPM-LP, as well as PhillyCAM TV. Check out the website, lifewithjoeycalvo.website, where you can see previous episodes of the podcast, support the podcast via the GoFundMe, purchase merchandise, as well as tickets to live events. Today's guest, we have David Wilcox. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Joey.
Okay, so explain. Sorry, I accidentally removed them. Let me get them back. Sorry about that. I don't know how I accidentally removed it. I was trying to go to something else and it removed you off the stage. Okay, there we go. All right, so David, explain to everyone who you are and how you got to where you're at now.
Well, let me go back. Originally, I was born and raised in Oceanside, California. I was a police officer out there. It was really my first main job. I got injured on duty. I came back east to go to grad school at Regent University on the property of CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, and was looking for a job. They looked at my resume and they said, "Hey, you got law enforcement experience?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, do you know who Pat Robertson is?" I said, "Yeah, I watch him on TV, his 700 Club." And they said, "Well, he's getting ready to run for president and he's looking for bodyguards. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I just have two questions." I said, "What does it pay and when do I start?" And I became Pat Robertson's bodyguard for a number of years. I traveled with him. For those who are not familiar with Pat, he was probably one of the most controversial televangelists of that time, mid-'80s through the mid-'90s. Just a social and religious lightning rod, very controversial. And so I had my work cut out for me. So I traveled around the country with Pat. He ran for president for the '88 election. He obviously did not win. But he founded a controversial organization called the Christian Coalition at the same time, right after he realized he wasn't going to be president. And it was headed up by a guy named Ralph Reed, who, in my estimation, is one of the most duplicitous, hypocritical, and biggest scam artists on the planet. He's still in business today. And so I ended up leaving Pat's side in the mid-'90s, ended up writing two books. One was called Protecting Pat Robertson, Confessions of a High-Priced Bagman. It kind of tells the story of how Pat started off with really good intentions ministry-wise, and then right after politics got involved in his life, he went off the rails and did some very corrupt, very dishonest, unethical things. And then I wrote a second book about Ralph Reed called The Trial of the Devil Incarnate, Ralph Reed, God's Flim-Flam Man. And it's, people want to read that book. It's got all the evidence to put Ralph Reed in prison. It's got canceled checks that he laundered, all the crimes, the hypocritical things he did. He raised millions and millions of dollars for the Christian Coalition as the poster child for conservative Christian people, and then turned right around and did the complete opposite. Protected organizations that dealt with secret gambling, online lottery, slave trading, human trafficking in the Mariana Islands. I could go on and on. He's one of the most duplicitous people in the world. So anyway, that's quickly my story. I'm retired now. I'm writing screenplays and things, but I'm getting ready to start a new podcast called God's Glorious Grifters, and it'll be revealing the truth about what I call the dirty dozen plus one of hypocritical, self-serving televangelists.
Okay. All right. So, how was it really like, working with Pat Robertson?
Well, there's the TV Pat Robertson, and then there's the real life Pat Robertson.
Yeah.
Pat was actually up for nomination for the Guinness Book of World Record of having the longest consecutive running TV show, the 700 Club TV show. It was on for at least 3 decades. He was the host of it. Pat came across as a very warm, gentle, caring, loving father image, and I loved Pat. I mean, I was willing to take a bullet for him, but back then he was really doing a lot of good things. He started a group called Operation Blessing that would go down whenever there was a hurricane down in the South. They would send kitchens down there. They would feed people. They were in there weeks before FEMA ever showed up. Really good stuff. He had literacy projects going on in the inner cities and stuff. But then, as I said, he got involved in politics and things really went off the rails. But the Pat Robertson everybody saw in their living rooms, 10 o'clock in the morning on Eastern time, Monday through Friday, was a far cry from the guy who ran the CBN Christian Broadcasting Network. Pat was a real taskmaster. He wouldn't tolerate mistakes. He wanted everything immediately, wanted it perfect. It's funny, if people want to do some hunting around since you're on YouTube, people may want to do some searches about Pat Robertson. He would be live on TV, and then they would go to a video clip for about 4 or 5 minutes. And as soon as they went to video, if there was something going on at the show he didn't like, he'd call some of his producers over and just ream them. I mean, take them to tears. And then there's occasionally he would come back on the air and he didn't catch his cue from the producer, and he'd still be chewing somebody out, but he was live on the air, and he'd kind of catch himself and correct himself. You know, it was rare, but it happened. And people asked me, what's he like to be around? I said, you better wear a Depends undergarment because he's going to chew your ass if you screw up. And his big thing was, fortunately, I didn't have too many screw ups, but his big thing was, well, what am I paying you for? What am I paying? You know, very impatient, wanted everything, and just thought the world revolved around him. We pulled up one time. Most of the time we flew on a private jet or private corporate plane, but every once in a while he had to fly commercial. And I was taking him and his wife to the Norfolk airport, and his wife she was a sweet lady. She always ran late. And we were running late for a commercial flight and still had to go through security and all this. We pulled up to the curbside, and Pat tells me, run ahead and tell the pilot to hold the plane for me. I'm like, you do realize you're flying commercial? He says, yeah, run up ahead and tell him we're late and hold the plane for me. I said, what if he's a Democrat? He's going to pull away from the gate immediately when he hears it's you. Probably they're going to shoot me when I run through security with a 9mm handgun on my hip.
Oh, God.
And fortunately, Dee Dee, his wife, spoke wisdom to him and said, Pat, you can't ask him to do that. Let's just get out and go. You know, anyway, they were running late. They made the plane. But that's the kind of mentality he has. I'm Pat Robertson. The world revolves around me.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't they hold 200 passengers hostage while they waited for me because I'm late? So it was a real duplicitous existence. Fortunately, I didn't make too many screw ups. Every once in a while, something would screw things up, and I'd get a overbite on my rear end. But that's the way he was.
Yeah. Okay, so so Pat Robertson wasn't the guy you saw on TV practically in so many ways when politics got involved. I know he continued on until he passed years ago. And there were times I would peek in and watch it. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of his because I was more into Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
And in reference to that. And so, I would peek in and he would go on these tangents. Well, not really the tangents, but he'd really go off at it, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow. I'm like, really, he really, did the damage. And then, I was like, when he passed, I don't know if it was like, I don't know if it could be a blessing to some, and you know, uh, you know, you know, things to others. But I mean, when he passed, it was just as bad as like Oral Roberts, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I met Oral Roberts. I met all the people, the televangelists of Pat's era.
Yes.
The interesting thing, Joey, was Pat was really doing some good work until he ran for president.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this until the day I die. We were in the company car,
Mm-hmm.
and he had two people in the back seat with him. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
One was a guy named Mark Nuttall, who was his pre-campaign manager under a group called Americans for Robertson. That was his political action committee before he made his official announcement. The other guy was a really wonderful guy, Rob Hartley, who worked for CBN. He was vice president of development. He was kind of the money man.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the shotgun seat of the company car, and I was listening to them. And you're too young to remember the old 1940s movies where the hero was in a crisis and he had a little angel and a little devil on his shoulders, and they were whispering to the hero of the story, listen to me, listen to me. It was like that. We had the good guy and the bad guy talking to Pat. The bad guy, Mark Nuttall, was saying, Pat, you've got to give Americans for Robertson access to the 3.5 million names on the Christian Broadcasting Network donor list.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
That was the lifeblood of the ministry. Those were the faithful people giving $20 a month and whatever.
Yeah.
Rob Hartley came back and said, you can't do that, Pat. It's against the law. It violates federal election campaign rules. The IRS will take away our tax-exempt status, which is our lifeblood. It'll kill the ministry. We'll lose hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs because the money will drop off. It went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I sat there and I was listening, and there was a moment of silence, and it seemed like forever. I'm sure it took 45 seconds. And I heard Pat say, give them the list.
Wow.
And I felt like I just got smacked with a 2x4. I thought, we have just sold our birthright. Fast forward, Joey, that one decision cost 640 plus jobs at the ministry because money took a nosedive.
Wow.
Just what Rob Hartley said. Pat came back with his tail between his legs after Super Tuesday. He realized he wasn't going to be president. And the hallways of CBN looked like a ghost town because so many people had to be laid off because the money dropped off, just like Rob Hartley predicted, because of that one ego-driven decision. And that was the fork in the road. After that, Pat started panicking. He started linking up with just speculative, fast turnaround money, multi-level marketing scams. He partnered up with two of the most incredibly big butchers on the globe, President Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, and a guy named Charles Taylor, the president of Liberia. Mobutu partnered with Pat to allow him to go in there and diamond mine. And Charles Taylor, this guy was tried by the World Court for crimes against humanity. He killed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of his own citizens. He was a brutal butcher. He and Pat formed a gold mining operation. And Pat was in business with both of them. Now tell me what formerly well-respected televangelist, man of the gospel, is doing, syncing up with these two criminals. It's just insane. And
it was like he It was like the devil inside. I mean, I could picture when you mentioned earlier about, the good and bad. I could picture the George Burns movie, Oh God, You Devil, where he played God and the devil, and with someone in the middle, that had to deal with, what to do and how to do it and all that. Yeah. And just picturing that, and then now hearing this for the first time in my life about with Pat Robertson, that that he wasn't the man everybody thinks he was. I would think, like, if he was still around, I would think he would need an exorcism. Literally because of that.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in any position to judge. I mean, I've got my own faults too, but
yeah.
I think what happened, Joey, is he was gone from CBN because of politics. He had to step off the show for a while.
Right.
He saw what his absence did to the donor base.
Right.
And then I think he realized, gee, what's going to happen to this big organization I built when I die?
Yep.
And I think he panicked and he started reaching out for business operations that could bring in residual income after he was gone. And I think that I like to be positive and say that's what he was trying to do. I don't think he was satanic about it. I don't think he was, ungodly. I think he was a Christian businessman that just was panicked because he wasn't exempt from death.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to die someday, and he was saying, I don't want to lose all this thing, this broadcasting network, this university, these other things. Now, the guy I'm worried about right now, Joey, is this guy, Ralph Reed. He's doing it right now. He runs this Faith and Family Alliance coalition, Faith and Family Coalition out of Georgia. He buddies up with Donald Trump whenever Trump's high visibility. Reed is the most duplicitous guy I've ever met in my life. He is a lie. My book, it's called The Trial of the Devil Incarnate, Ralph Reed, God's Flim Flam Man.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 80s, he partnered with a guy named Jack Abramoff and Michael Scanlon. They scammed American Indian tribes out of about $90 million.
Wow.
Okay. Abramoff and Scanlon and a bunch of his cronies all were sent to prison after an investigation was held by the Senate Investigative Committee. Reed was protected. Reed never got subpoenaed, never had to testify. He was protected by Karl Rove and George W. Bush because he had done a lot of political backroom stuff for them. And he never got held accountable. Well, my book holds him accountable. I've got canceled checks in there where he laundered his money. Bogus organizations where he laundered his money. I have proof in his emails that he conspired with Jack Abramoff and Michael Scanlon. He was involved in protecting a group in the Mariana Islands that were importing Chinese women to work for slave wages, and they were farmed out as prostitutes during the evening. And Reed made over $1 million. Was paid well over $1 million to set up a bogus campaign so that they didn't have to adhere to legislation as far as labeling their garments. It was a garment manufacturing deal. It just goes on and on and on. I got every piece of evidence. He should be held accountable for RICO violations, conspiracy, money laundering, fraud. I mean, the guy is the biggest crook on the planet in my estimation. And he's currently standing up on stage, painting himself as a conservative Christian spokesperson, and people deep-pocketed, naive Christians are sending him money left and right. And Google the Faith and Freedom Coalition and ask AI if there's anything scandalous about him, and tons of stuff will pull up. He called the Faith and Freedom Coalition the same as the Christian Coalition on steroids. And he ran that into the ground and was under federal investigation for using it as a tool to help the GOP. I could go on and on. It just is the most mind-boggling thing that this guy continues to get away with it. And I'm holding him accountable. I don't care if he I'd love for him to sue me, because I'd like to get discovery to his tax records and all of his documents.
Okay.
People's jaws will drop.
Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the podcast and, you know, what the podcast is going to be about and where we're going to see David the next 5 years, etc. So stay tuned for more on the Life with Joey Calvo podcast.
That's some great music, Joey.
All right. Yeah, thank you. All right, welcome back to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. Our guest today is David Wilcox, who was a former bodyguard for the late Pat Robertson at CBN when he went to run for president back in the 80s, and has just exposed what had happened during that time in reference to it. And so he's getting ready to start a podcast. And so, David, explain about this podcast that you're going to start.
Well, I've got one existing, it's not technically, I guess, a podcast. It's a website. It's called the Flim Flam Chronicles. I did it in conjunction with my books. What it is, it's a repository of narratives of information taken from the books. There's no charge for it at the moment, but people can go there and listen in more detail. Audio narratives are about 8 to 10 minutes a piece, and it explains some of the stuff about Pat Robertson and Ralph Reed. The podcast that I've got in the works, I probably have it up in the next 30 days, will be called God's Glorious Grifters. And I've decided, I've just been doing some research, and I know you mentioned Joel Osteen earlier in this podcast. Mm-hmm. I've got a collection of 13, I'm calling it the Dirty Dozen Plus One, televangelists that run these mega ministries. And it just does something to me to see people like Kenneth Copeland flying around in two Gulfstream jets. The guy's worth like $600 million, you know. And back in the day, early on in my Christian walk, I actually went to Kenneth Copeland rally at the Anaheim Convention Center, and it was the most mind-boggling thing. Every hour, and there must have been 20,000 people sitting in the arena, they would pass around these KFC chicken buckets to take an offering. And people were throwing $20 bills in there, and it's all cash and everything. I thought, this guy's making bank, you know, and you got Osteen is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You got TD Jakes, the same thing. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start posting more narratives. Most of them will be 8 to 10 minutes. They'll be subject driven. There might be 10 or 20 about each one of the televangelists in question. And people can go there and listen to them at their leisure, download them. But I think it's fascinating. I think a lot of Christians especially, and I'm a very devout Christian. I believe in God. I talk to God every day. He's really blessed my life, but I don't think his heart is in scamming people. I don't think his heart is in taking widows and orphans and milking them for their last $20 so these guys can fly around in Gulfstream jets and live in 40,000 square foot mansions. That's not what ministers are supposed to do. They're supposed to be giving to the people that need things, not taking. So I'm going to kind of go after them. I'm going to research everything. Everything I've done on Pat Robertson and Ralph Reed is a matter of public record. It's well researched. I'm not making anything up. And I won't do that with the God's Glorious Grifters. I'll research it. I'll document it. I'll double document it. I'll corroborate it. And then I'm going to put a narrative out and say, this is the truth about this guy. This is what this guy really is all about. And then let people want to make up their own minds. They want to keep giving money to a guy like Osteen or Kenneth Copeland or TD Jakes or, any of these other guys. Hey, knock yourself out. It's your money. But I want you to know where it's going. They have no accountability. Most of them, they have tax-exempt status, and they have a thing called a living stipend, where they can supposedly set up a parsonage. Well, some of these parsonages that they live in rent-free and tax-free, like I say, are 40,000 square foot mansions. Who needs that? Who needs that, Joey? And so anyway, that's what I've got going on. And I hope people find it educational, and I hope it stirs in them a consciousness about what these televangelists are all about, because it's really a crime.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, I've seen videos where they expose Joe Osteen, saying that he's making all this money and, and practically just like living off of that,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I definitely, I've seen stuff about Kenneth Copeland. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, I wouldn't even. I mean, he's not worth. He shouldn't be. None of these televangelists should be doing that. But they have to earn their living, quote unquote, in reference to it. So that's why you hear all this millions of dollars and all that. I mean, Joel told the story about when his before his father passed away, they had a TV studio in Houston, and what happened was just when his father passed away, he found out that the former Compact Center where the Rockets used to play was available, and he went for it, and then there was this lawsuit, and he talks about the lawsuit and how this company that was holding them back from buying the Compact Center just dragged to the point where they got together and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We'll drop the lawsuit, whatever, and we'll give you whatever. And they settled it out of court in reference to it.
Sure.
And then, to turn around and say they need $100 million to renovate it. I mean, if you really think about it, $100 million, that's like what's now called the Xfinity Mobile Arena here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Okay. Remodeled 6 times for what it cost Joel Osteen to renovate the,
Well, you make a great point. These ministries, they hide behind the laws that as they exist now, and they don't have any accountability. They don't have to release their financial records, like regular businesses do. They got to report to the IRS every dollar that's spent and everything. And the problem I have with some of them is they say that they're speaking for God. I mean, Osteen, I've heard him and say, send me $100 right now as a seed offering, and God will multiply it 50 times for you, or words to that effect. Well, where do you get off speaking for God like that? Maybe God doesn't want to bless that person 50 times over for that. Right, That's people. It's funny that people here say, you're not supposed to take the Lord's name in vain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody says, well, that's swearing. If you say, God damn it, that's taking the Lord's name in vain. No, it's not. When you take the Lord's name in vain, you take the Lord's name speaking for the Lord for an issue that's vain. Right. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. I'm speaking for God. I'm telling you that he wants you to send me $100 right now.
Yeah.
That's the sin. And people don't get it. And these people have no accountability. They're free to do just about whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a crime. It's a moral tragedy, I guess.
Yeah.
And people are so hungry right now. People are hurting. They want to know that God loves them and is going to take care of them and provide for them and stuff. And these guys are just opportunists. They look good in the suit. They got the good Rolex. They're driving in the Rolls. They're flying around them. They are the poster children for prosperity.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, you could be like me. I'll pray for you. Just send me $100.
Yeah. Now, if only I could have been like that a long time ago when this podcast started, in reference to that. But, I originally started this podcast as a side hustle, really just to, make some extra money to get by when I was working at home.
Joey, I'm not going to send you $100, Joey.
Oh no, I'm not. No.
I'm just messing with you.
No. That's what the GoFundMe account's about. But no, I turned around, but see, now I'm starting to see things. Let's just say it this way. And I've said this story before. Back in December of 2025, I was fired from Amazon back in February of 2025. So it was a little over a year. And so I had gotten the unemployment and everything until August. So from August till December, I'm like trying to figure out what am I going to do? How am I going to, be able to live? I had just applied for disability in September. And I was to the point where I didn't hear from them yet. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Mm-hmm. I was done. I was just going to say goodbye to the whole world, And so I confronted myself with it by going to Penn's Landing, which is, here in Philadelphia, but it's the pier that's before the Ben Franklin Bridge crossing over in New Jersey. And so I go out there, I'm looking at the Delaware River, and I'm like, just thinking about, is this going to happen? And the first thing that came into my mind as I was thinking about it was my father and my brother coming on Penn's Landing to come get me and saying it's time to go home. And I was like looking, thinking, that was going to happen. And of course it didn't. But this guy was walking along the pier like I had. And all of a sudden he jumps onto the edge and gets all the way to the edge of it. I thought he was going to fall in. And that stopped me right there in my track. To say, not worth it. Yeah. And then I sat down and I said, God, what am I going to do? What do I have to do? And he mentioned to me, he said, your calling is this podcast. Okay.
Yeah, I believe it.
And also, he also told me that everything was coming. Oops, wrong thing. Give me a moment. Bear with me a moment, folks, in reference to this, because he told me about someone who's been very supportive to the podcast. And he told me that everything goes through this person. This is American Fox. She was the podcast's number one fan, number one supporter, and she's a real life superheroine, believe it or not.
Wow.
And she's proven to me so many times how much of a real life superheroine she is. Not only, fighting crime in the streets, but helping me fight my battles. Now, she didn't have questions, but I wanted to bring her out because she really was that person that God said everything's going to go through her, go through with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's part of your life. She is that person that is there for you. I mean, I have another person as well. But God told me that the podcast was your calling and that American Fox is your go-to person, quote unquote. Or what I believe from it was that he brought her into my life
mm-hmm.
to make it better, to put me in a positive direction.
Sure. Well, let me ask you a quick question.
Go for it.
Did you need a third person to receive God's message to you? God spoke to you.
I've had the third person for a long time.
Yeah, but
I will say, the first time I attempted suicide was in 2012, but that was because of I fell behind on rent because I was given the money, instead of giving the money towards paying rent, it was going to someone else. And I was taking care of that person instead of taking care of myself. And I walked out to the South Street Bridge on that one.
Yeah.
And that person's voice, who I had just gotten to know, matter of fact, over the past, we had known each other about a year by then. And in the back of my head, I was hearing, I would miss you if you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that stopped me right there. And that stopped me. Because I was feeling all this love. I was feeling it back in 2012 with that first one. And I was definitely feeling it in December with this one. But what wound up happening, David, is this. When I left Penn's Landing, after realizing, what God's telling me, my classmate, I had a classmate who had just lost a house in a fire. And she was going through some mental health issues as well. I get a text from another classmate saying, call me. And I'm like, no, because at that time, this classmate was kind of telling me what to do with my life. And I didn't want to deal with it. And she said, no, you got to call me. And I literally said no. And then she said, so-and-so passed away.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God. So it was kind of like interesting. I'm not saying that happened. But it was like maybe there was a third voice that was coming out at me that really stopped me over the other two.
Yeah. Well, people, people want to hear from God. They don't need an intercessor to talk to God. In fact, it says very clearly, God speaks to you in a still, small voice. He doesn't scream. He doesn't shoot off guns and fireworks and get your attention and make some great, Ten Commandments saga about it. He talks to you. Get quiet someplace. You've experienced it. You can't explain it. It's a still voice. Where'd it come from?
Right.
But man, it is relevant to you. And that's what drives me crazy with this is you get these televangelists, they look great on TV. They spend millions of dollars with studio lighting and special effects and all this stuff. And they get up there like they're God's personal spokesperson. That's BS. You don't need an intercessor to talk to God. Just get someplace quiet and talk, and you don't need a lot of therefores and thous and wilts and all that religious language. Just say, God, I need some help. Talk in plain English, like a child would go to their parent. I need some help. I'm going through a crisis. I'm in serious doubt about this and that. Please, would you help me? And then be quiet and let him work. Let him, and you gotta. And it's funny, Joey.
That's what I thought I was doing. That's what I thought I was doing. To find out, I really was. I found out I wasn't. I found out I wasn't listening to him because I was doing things. I'm not saying that were. I started treating people differently to the point where I wanted to just shut the door on everybody and say, you know what? I'm hurting you. I'm protecting you guys from me.
Right.
If I keep everybody away from me, nobody will be hurt. Life will go on. This podcast became Jeopardy and still is to a point. Because of the actions I've taken in my life. And, when I mentioned about American Fox, that's one person that really keeps believing in me no matter what I go through. Like the other person that's in my life too.
Right.
They're both the same. And I'm not saying it kills me. It stabs me because I would never think that these two people would come into my life and say, you know what, Joey, there is a better life. You just need to see it. You need to stop being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And I literally cannot do it because what I've done in my past, I can never forgive because it cost me a lot.
Sure.
And I mean, I can literally say it destroyed me, even though it doesn't look as bad, but it was damaging. To the point where I've lost family members from talking to me.
Right.
And that's what hurts me the most in reference to it. But the two people between American Fox and this other person, they literally are like fighting me, saying, Joey, you need to go forward. You need to lift yourself up. I mean, we can only do it to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you don't need to do it. You need to stop worrying about me. I'm not worth it anymore. I've gotten, I turned around because I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in 2009. So every time I went to a therapist, the therapist would be like, Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Not, you should do this or look into this or,
Right.
It was like, well, why am I seeing you if you're telling me, what am I going to do? If you're asking me what I'm going to do. So I turned around. I stopped going to a therapist. The psychiatrist that I had seen, he turned around and said, you know what, Joey? This podcast is your therapy.
Yeah.
And I turned around to him and I said, what planet are you from? Because I was like, how can my podcast be therapy? And then I was like, as time went on, I was like, he's right. Because I'm picking brains while I'm doing it.
Right.
And I'm like, he's right. So I turned around. I mean, and he took me off any medication I was on for it. He said, you don't need a psychiatrist. You do need a psychologist, but you don't need a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
You're I'm like, okay. So to make a long story short, after I left the psychologist, I had gone back to church last year for the first time in 17 years.
Wow.
And when I walked into this church, first thing that was going to come into my mind is they're going to, if I mention what happened to me, they're not going to make me feel welcome.
They're going to treat you like you got a dead fish in your pocket, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which wind up happening and this was an Episcopalian church that I had gone to when I was married. And the pastor of that church was like, she was like, it would be safer if you don't come.
Wow.
And
well, you're fortunate to be rid of a church like that, Joey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And well, outside of that, the wife I had was cheating. My in-laws were kind of like against me, but it wasn't because of me. It was because of my ex-wife. Because when we got married, she didn't even tell her family that we were even getting married.
Yeah.
It was like, it was all on me. And so when I turned around and went to see them, I was starting to become and I have a few minutes left, so I got to make this quick. A paintball target.
Yeah.
By my own in-laws.
Yeah.
Now, when my ex-wife turned 21, and I was 30 at the time that this happened. This was exactly 25 years ago, matter of fact, almost. If I was still married, it would have been 25 years, almost 2 weeks ago. I threw her 21st birthday. Okay. I went to her parents and said, listen, this is happening. This is what time it's happening. Her parents and her aunt came down. So they realized that I was not the reason, I wasn't trying to be the evil son-in-law. I was trying to prove, godly wise.
Right.
But of course, I had an ex-wife who would not let me keep anything secret. If I was going to Costco or something for a cake, she was with me. She could not let me be alone to do anything.
I understand.
And because of that, everything just fell apart from there. It was like I couldn't be trusted as time went on.
Yeah.
And she wound up cheating on me. And then that happened, and then so on. So make the long story short, I made God my therapist.
Good for you.
I had made God my therapist when I started going to the church. I haven't gone back to church in a little bit because I do have some health problems, and I still have that mentality of pushing people away.
Well, let me tell you something real quick.
Go ahead. We got 2 minutes.
Okay. God speaks to you in a still small voice. He is never condemning. He never calls you names. He never makes you feel small. He loves you unconditionally. The one that condemns you, the one that speaks loudly to you, that says you're a failure, you didn't do this, you did this, that's the devil. He's a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Okay? And
you know what? As I've been thinking about that, I've been thinking about Job.
Oh yeah.
And everything he went through. I feel like Job right now. It was like whatever's been happening to me, I've let happen. I will say this very quickly. If it rains, I will go outside and get wet because I'm like blaming myself for everything. And it's like I'm saying, why is this happening to me?
Joey, I'm going to give you a quick image I want you to think about.
Go ahead.
You're wearing a diaper that's about the size of a king size bed sheet.
Okay.
It's trailing behind you. It's like a little baby that's got a full diaper. It's just dragging it on the ground.
Right.
You've got a diaper behind you that's about the size of a king size bed sheet. It's full of shit. It's all this shit that you've gone through your entire life. Okay? You can continue to drag it around with you, Joey, or you can simply acknowledge it, step out of it, and leave it the hell behind you and go on. Okay? And that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
I got similar stories. Step out of the damn diaper and just go enjoy your life. You're a great guy.
Yeah. Well, the only thing to that is, though, to be quick, is that past that I mentioned, there's a cloud to it I have to live with for the rest of my life in reference to it. So that's why the diaper can't come off per se in reference to that part of it. But David, you're welcome to come back on this podcast anytime.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you so much for everyone for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast on YouTube at PhillyCAM and listening to it on WPPM-LP. God bless you all.
Thanks, Joey.
You're welcome.